Reversing your insulin resistance is the most important thing that I do with my patients in our lasting weight loss programs. In this clip, I'm working with my patients in my Flow Warrior coaching program, where we're diving into various aspects of what type of roadblocks they're running into regarding insulin resistance. Yes, you have to be in a caloric deficit for you to be able to achieve lasting weight loss, but dialing in the metabolic health, reducing inflammation, improving insulin resistance is the secret to long-term lasting weight loss. Produce that environment where your body works with you, not against you. Hope you guys enjoyed this clip, and we'll see you later. So far, the plethora of the Flow protocol are what I think is the most important sustainable lifestyle strategies to ultimately fix insulin resistance and keep insulin resistance at bay. How do we accomplish lasting weight loss? By implementing permanent lifestyle change, right? And there's different opinions on what the best lifestyle, right? So you're trusting me that I think I figured out at least, and I'm always learning and trying to upgrade. That's the nuts and bolts of what we're trying to do. Now, insulin resistance is one of those things where the more you have it, the deeper it is, the harder it is to get out of. And so that's where the medication comes in. Gives you hope is definitely one way to makes a lot of sense. Like it frees you up of some of that burden. It's one way to look at it, mentally, spiritually, and physically too. So you have more control, your hunger is more controlled, your body's responding better. It's working with you, not against you. Because I always describe insulin resistance as which ultimately creates the elevated insulin levels. So the elevated insulin levels are working against you. You're trying to reduce your calories, the thing that you know you need to do to lose weight, but your body's not working with you. It's working against you. So it's making you more hungry. It's decreasing your metabolism. It's increasing your stress hormones, which is why elevated insulin levels are very much different in a weight loss situation than having lower insulin levels. So going back to your question, because I loved it, I thought that was great. It's an experiment you're going to have to run, right? It's an experiment you can run this early in the program. It's an experiment you have to run by the end of the program. Is I need to test the waters, right? I had the support, so now I need to see if I got it on my own, right? Or in this case, if I got it with less support, because that's the goal that I want for you guys. And hopefully I think you guys want it too, which is full-blown medication, GLP-1 medication independence with lasting weight loss, or you're happy with microdosing intermittent use to maintain your weight. And that's going to be your journey. And I'll tell you what, you might change your mind as time goes on, as life progresses, because it's never static. Life's very dynamic. It's going to change, and so will your desires and goals. The thing that I always say is, as long as we can improve our current condition, that's all we can ask. And you beat that condition, you get there, and then you just keep raising the bar.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I've got another factor involved, and it's the thyroid. My TSH was 6.48. So I'm going on ND thyroid, but I'm taking a cortisol test Monday. So I didn't want to start that until then. And I've also my NP said testosterone. So I'm like, okay, maybe that's the reason why I'm not hungry. And then what you just said, it's just, I am a big leadership fan, and John Maxwell, I love him. And one of the things he says is, when you have momentum going on your side, you don't let up. You put the pedal to the metal. And it's like when you don't have the momentum, that's when you lay off a little bit. So I'm like, okay, I started September 1st, and I've eaten well on every single day. And before that, I couldn't put 2 days together eating because I just felt so hopeless. That's another piece of the puzzle. So it's probably just trial and error, I guess.
It is, because look, one of two things is going to happen when you reduce your medications. Either you're going to do great and you're like, okay, I don't need the higher dose, which 2.5 is not a high dose, but yeah, I don't need that dose. I'm better with lower. Or you're going to find out, ooh, okay, this is harder. And guess what? If you find out it's harder, you can go back to the 2.5, recalibrate, and test it out later. And that's how I've described to my veterans here the drill. Like when we get closer to our goal, we're approaching the lifestyle. That's what the test looks like. Let's decrease the dose and test the water. And I'm going to learn with you where your body's at, because I have no way to know, right?
Yep.
But that's how that looks.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome, Robin. Fantastic. I think Patrick is next.
It was Miss Jennifer, actually. And then
Jennifer. Okay, cool.
Oh, hi, Doc.
Hey.
To get some clarity about what's going on in our bodies when we have the GLP-1 medication on board. I've been on 4 weeks, and I was doing the flow, trying to get better at fasting, being really clean on diet, doing hypertrophic exercise, and being really good at that. I've lost 5 pounds in 6 weeks.
Okay.
And I do have beginning stage diabetes, so really bad insulin resistance. And you had mentioned that it's going to be slow and it takes some time to build some momentum. So just for clarity for, I think, all of us, could you explain a little bit about what the medications are doing to help correct that insulin resistance before we actually see a bigger weight loss going on? Is there something going on for repair inside the body?
Yeah, so diabetes is late stage insulin resistance by definition, because it's the insulin resistance that your body is developing to keep the blood sugar at bay. That's the only solution. Remember, you wouldn't have insulin resistance if your blood sugar levels weren't an issue. But your blood sugar levels were an issue through many reasons, lifestyle being part of it. And so your body's response is to elevate insulin levels, which is what creates the resistance. And you guys know that whole thing. So once you're diabetic, even just pre, and then worse as it becomes type 2 and then insulin dependent at the end, that is by definition insulin resistance. The reason why I made that statement about, because I've seen this so many times too, it's like clockwork. You're pre-diabetic or more, it's not every time, but it's the weight loss is slow and it seems to just snap at some point and there's like a massive increase to either like a little faster or normal. And it's different for everybody. So the medications are giving you this sort of separate pathway to improving insulin resistance. The normal pathway is the lifestyle, improving the lifestyle. But the medication is just completely on its own by effect of what it does is it acts on the actual pancreas itself to improve the function of the pancreas, specifically how it's producing it and its sensitivity. So it's just directly doing that. You'd have to talk to a scientist to get more definition of what it's actually doing beyond that point, which I don't think you wanted that technical. But yeah, by effect, that's what it's doing. So the medication's doing that so that the effect of our lifestyle is more powerful. So the combination of both together are working synergistically to get your body moving in the right direction to essentially become more insulin sensitive, which is this improving insulin sensitivity is the same thing as saying decreasing insulin resistance. So that's all we're trying to do. And at some point, I anticipate there's going to be a threshold which your body will start dropping more fat. So you do have to, be patient with that process. And besides the medication, it's the flow. And in your case, if you want to speed that up, go stricter on your keto, as strict as you can, and really stay consistent with the fasting. Those are the two most important things. The weight training, the supplements, the inflammation, that's all helpful. But if we're talking about pure insulin resistance, which is what we are in your case, because you're pre-diabetic, it's going to be the fasting and the keto. That's the fastest fix to insulin resistance. So does that answer your question?
It does. And I started off pretty good on the keto, but I realized that I'm super sensitive to cheese. So it has to be for me more carnivore than keto in order to see the difference.
The good news is, just like keto, if you could try that and see what it does, knowing that this is not going to be required for life. No, like I'm really confident that just like I am with keto, that we're doing this for a couple months and then we're going to test the waters again. So we'll start introducing carbs later, even if you're not at your goal yet. Just once, in your case, instead of 2 months, I'd probably say 4 months, but give it a solid chunk of time. Let's make a big leap in our improvement of insulin resistance. And then from there, we'll test the waters and go low carb from keto and work our way up.
Thanks, Doc. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Is it Patrick, Ceci?
Patrick, yes. And then Miss Shireen isn't able to raise her hand, but she'll be next.
Okay, perfect.
Hey, Dr. Joe.
Hey. Hello.
Hi. I have been on the lowest dose of Mounjaro for 6 weeks, roughly. And the hunger signaling, I think, is really picked up as of late. Just to give you some context, I started with the 48 hours fast right out of the bat immediately, no problem. And so the past 2 weeks has been really difficult to do that. But just on a daily basis, I am just hungry. Whereas before, the first 4 weeks, I wasn't hungry. When I started eating, I would eat. I wouldn't have problems eating. But right now, like the food noises come back quite aggressively.
So let me make sure I understand before you continue. Before you started doing the long fasting, you were on the medication, the same dose you're on now, and you had a certain level of appetite suppression. And now after some long fasting, it's like you feel the medication has worn off. Is that?
No, I feel like the hunger signaling is come back. It started mid-August. As I said, first week fasted, then the next 4 weeks, the 48-hour fast was a breeze. The past 2 weeks has been difficult. In fact, this week I didn't do a managed just a 24-hour fast, and I wanted to do another 24-hour fast, but really struggling every day, every morning I wake up, I'm hungry, which I didn't feel previously.
Great. Okay, cool. So no, I'm tracking. You know, this is very similar to what you'll see even if you weren't doing the flow protocol. Most people, that's the standard thing, right? Is they start off at 2.5 and after 4 weeks, they go through the side effects, they go through the appetite suppression, it wears off, then they bump it up. Then they repeat the cycle, right? Wash, rinse, repeat, then they do it again. What's so amazing with the flow protocol is that happens much less often. A lot of you guys can attest that have been here for longer that you didn't have that process where, a lot of you didn't have to increase, or a lot of you only had to increase once. And so side effect profiles are lower. But in your case, Patrick, it still does happen, right? So I think that's all that's happening is that you might be exactly at the point where an increase is appropriate. Again, that's going to be your decision. I'm assuming you're currently on the 2.5, right? Because you said the low dose. Okay. Yeah. So you have so much room, right? 15 is the max. From what I've seen, it seems to be the average dose is 5 of tirzepatide, if we're talking about, or 0.75 to 1 for semaglutide. In terms of people that are really doing the flow, on average, that seems to be like sufficient for them. Now that's with AOD too as well. Of course, everybody's going to be a little bit different. This is a sample size. That's not a research study. This is Dr. Jones's observation. But nonetheless, that's what I see pretty consistently. So yeah, if you want to get that control back so that you can continue to stay consistent, which I would recommend in terms of doing what you need to do to take control, then yes, medication increase is probably warranted. You'll regain that control and just keep implementing the protocol. And then I would doubt that you're going to see that a second time. Either way, let us know if it happens.
Great. Thanks.
Absolutely. All right. Let's see.
Miss Shireen had a question. I just
Oh,
unmuted.
yes. Thank you, Ceci.
Welcome.
Hello there. Can you hear me?
Hey. How are
Hi,
you?
how are you?
Good.
Sorry, I'm driving, so I'm not gonna put on my video.
It's okay. Please don't. Yeah, be safe.
Okay, so a couple of questions actually. One is I'm still having technical difficulties trying to log in my weight. I don't know if it's just cookies or what it is, but the flow, or the app is not letting me log in my weight. And then 2 is I'm gaining weight. Not happy about that, but I'm
I
trying
wouldn't
to
be
keep
either.
my
Yeah, I wouldn't be.
I'm trying to keep my calories at around 1800. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. I'm noticing that I'm just not getting enough protein in because I'm using the Lose It app. I don't know if this might be helpful for anybody else. I think there's an app that you also, I think it's Fitness Tracker, if I'm not mistaken.
MyFitnessPal.
MyFitnessPal, there we go. But Lose It is another one, and it tells me my macros, carbs, fats, and calories, all that. And I find it very useful. And you can put in your recipes, whatnot, because I heard that it's difficult for some people to measure, get the right calories in terms of what the food content calories are. And then, so I'm gaining weight, but I may also be gaining muscle. I have no idea because I feel stronger and I'm not as sore as I used to be. I mean, these past couple of weeks.
That's good.
Exciting.
Yeah.
But there's another factor that I wanted to ask, and that's for women who especially may have thyroid issues and or may have hormone deficiencies and or potentially estrogen dominance. I was just at a conference right now with Dr. Jess. I don't know if Dr. Jess Petros, she was just talking about how
No.
bile salt, you don't know? Okay. She was talking about how bile salts and the function of bile, especially for women, is super important in getting rid of that excess estrogen. And I know when your thyroid's not working, your gallbladder, you're probably having gallbladder issues and you can't figure out your gallbladder isn't functioning very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, which then causes the whole estrogen to get stuck in the gut, which with GLP-1s, I know that our gut isn't moving as fast as well.
Wow.
So it's just like a compounding effect. And on top of that, if we're doing keto, we're just eating a lot of fat. And if we're not breaking that down, then it's like a piling on the, I don't know what the word is. It's just essentially compounding itself. So that's
I could totally see that pathway potentially happening for sure. So I'm with you. That makes sense to me, but keep going.
So one thing that she happened to mention is TUDCA and or potentially taurine, which is the first part of TUDCA, and adding that as a supplement to be able to help with creating some of that bile and flushing it out. And then also making sure having a ton of fiber, which I know is something you recommend as well. Not ton, but just enough fiber.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then having choline and things like that to help with emulsifying the fats.
Yeah. If
And
you
then
have
the
any
last
links to
thing-
that, please send it my way. I'd love to look into that for sure. No, I'm always trying to expand our protocol as much as possible. So yeah, please send me anything that you have like that. I'll take a look at it.
Okay, awesome. Will do. And then thirdly, I did send Cecilia this Instagram post of, I think it's Dr. Artis, I don't know, it's some doctor who is scaring the hell out of people with GLP-1s. I'm not sure if she shared it with you or not, but just talking crazy about how these shots have some crazy factors that are somehow coming from some crazy information, which essentially is to scare us. And I disagree with it, but that's not to say it doesn't create that cognitive dissonance in my mind. That's like just a question.
Totally.
Oh my God, is that possible? I don't know if Cecilia are you familiar, Cecilia?
Yeah, it's number one
Can you
on
hear me?
the.
Yeah, my plan was that's one of the topics that I'm going over today, depending on, unless there's a ton of Q&A back and forth. But yeah, it's one of the upcoming topics, whether it's today or next week, is just getting into my opinion on GLP-1 safety and what are the actual risks and how I look at it. But yeah, so definitely coming up either today or next week. So
Beautiful.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, awesome. Because I know
yeah.
it's a great thing. It's just, go ahead.
No, I was going to make sure, was there any other part of the first part that was a question
Either.
you wanted me to cover, or just sharing that first part with me?
No, just sharing. I guess
Okay.
I was sharing. There's no real question other than I shouldn't be worried about this weight gain, right? At some point, I'm going to start the medication and I will see results.
Totally. Yeah.
And maybe
yeah.
one last thing, if you don't mind. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
I don't mind.
One last thing is there's this discussion about baseline, right? So if the idea is to eat less and then so you're eating less and therefore your baseline goes down. I know you're doing a reset so that we can increase that baseline so we can allow our body to know that we're not starving, right? And then once we're increasing those calories, then we go on GLP-1s and then our body just doesn't feel like consuming as much food. So our hunger signals go down. We still maintain a certain amount of calories as memory from the reset to know how many calories that we ate before. So now we know that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
That baseline doesn't go down again, does it?
Great question. No, it's a great question. The baseline consumption of how much you're eating per day, that's what you're asking, right?
Say that one more time. You cut out just a sec.
You're saying the baseline of daily caloric consumption. You're asking if that daily intake goes down after the reset. Just want to make sure I understand that's what you're asking about.
Yeah, in terms of deficit, because if we're taking GLP-1s and we have a deficit of calories, and I'm wondering if that baseline also, if the body becomes efficient to match that. Calorie deficit.
For sure. So great question, by the way. And I love how you're really trying to understand the mechanisms behind all this. And I'm probably not going to remember all the multiple pieces of what you said, but I'm going to do my best. We'll start with the most recent one, and then hopefully I'll fill in the gaps. I had something to say back to all the three of those pieces. Regarding the calorie deficit, right? You're spot on, guys, that the point of the reset at the beginning is to speed that metabolism back up to what is optimal. not just for the sake of lasting weight loss. Like that's also crucial, not just to get you to lose more weight, right? It's also to get your body the energy that it needs for optimal health, because hypothyroidism isn't just an issue of, oh my gosh, I can't lose weight. Your health declines. Like you said earlier, the gallbladder doesn't function. And I wanted to interject and say a lot of different systems in your body do not function as well when you're hypothyroid, because every single cell in your body has receptors for thyroid, and it's thyroid hormone activation of every single cell, all trillions in your body, every single organ, every single cell for optimal functioning needs optimal thyroid activation. So big deal. So we're definitely on the same page there. We want to get your body to the ideal rate of burning energy consumption that it would like to be, which is supposed to be, the formula is TEE. So now we do that. And like you said, I don't want you having to count calories every single day. So you get this mental representation of 2000, for example, if that's what you're supposed to be at, if that's what we work you up to. Then instead of turning around after that and trying to decrease that in order to lose weight, because you got to be on a caloric deficit, we're not thinking daily caloric deficit, we're thinking weekly. And that's going to be in that long fast. That's the concept with FLOA, is keep eating 2000 every day, with the exception of that long fast. Whether you're in the phase 2, which is 24-hour twice a week, or whether you get to the flow stage, it's one long fast is the goal, whether it's 24, 36, or 48. That's your weekly calorie deficit. If you are enjoying watching these clips from my coaching calls and my community, guys, I have thousands of like-minded individuals who are kicking ass. Click that link. I'll put it in the description of the video, where you can set up a free consultation to discuss exactly how my individuals are achieving lasting weight loss utilizing microdosing and intermittent use protocols. Now, back to the video. While maintaining that 2000 or close to 2000 on the other days, so that we can try to prevent from that continual caloric deficit trend that the body detects, which is what triggers the slowdown of the metabolism to begin with. I'm trying to figure out the easiest way to put all that together, but that's the goal of why FLOA is, at least in my opinion, why I've seen much lower rates of plateauing. Because before I came up with FLOA, like before I even became a DC, I managed gyms and I managed so many different personal trainers. So we had thousands of clients, a ton of personal trainers. This was way back in the day. And so before fasting was even a thing, believe it or not. And so the old school method to weight loss is the typical calorie restriction, 6 small meals a day, counting calories, counting macros, busting your butt. And it works for the short term. It just doesn't work for the long term. And the amount of plateauing I would see that would happen back then in that sort of approach was much more, because I think in my opinion, because of a daily caloric deficit is a trend that the hypothalamus and the brain detects. And with FLOA, because we're hitting it with those higher calorie days in between, in my opinion, I think what's happening is like that intermittent caloric deficit is harder for your body to detect a trend and signal this whole starvation mode to begin with. So hopefully that answers the last part of your question, Shireen, or kind of clarifies that for you. If she's still with us. Okay.
Yeah, I'm right here. Sorry. Yeah, that was perfect. That actually, I had blanked out on that for a second, but that totally makes sense with the fasting.
Perfect.
So that makes me excited.
Yeah. So
thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And to really just that feeling you're getting of not seeing the scale go down, I felt it and I get it. Trust me that I'm with you too. Like I hate not giving people the quick weight loss that they want, but you subscribe to my program, so you got to try. And I know you do, but this goes for everybody. Like the reset is a process where you're investing some time and kind of waiting, and the reward is going to be bigger is one way to put it. Fantastic. Okay. Thank you for that, Shireen. Did anybody? Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Sassy, did anybody have their hand up?
I did not see any hands. Just some questions. Miss Scarlett's looks like it's the first one. What is CJC?
Perfect. And I also see Sandra too. Dr. Jones, I've stalled for 3 weeks doing FLOA, GLP-1, AOD, thyroid medication, weight training, low carb, only lost 10 pounds in 12 weeks. Don't know what else to do. Is Sandra warrior or student? Just so I know what you're doing with her, if anything.
I'm looking now.
Okay, cool. So just as some of you guys know, the difference between the student and the warrior is student, I'll help you as much as I can on these calls, and the warrior, we can go more on the actual, like if they need to put you on a private Zoom with me, that's what we do to help fix you, help improve the situation and get back on track. So so 3 weeks is definitely enough time for us to say, hey, what's going on? Your weight loss has stalled. So hopefully you just learned a lot with what I just talked about as far as the kind of the metabolic reset and the plateau, right? So if you're in a plateau, at least from a weight loss stall, first thing you need to do is, okay, am I actually in a plateau where I need to increase my intake? Or am I in a situation where I'm losing body fat and I'm building muscle mass? And Shireen actually made a statement earlier, how would I know? This is why I recently updated the protocol and asked you guys to start tracking circumference measurements, at least just your waist, but you can do midline of your arm and midline of your thigh. That data, the circumference measurements, is actually useful for a situation like that, where Shireen was like, I think I feel stronger and the scale's not moving in the direction I want. If we see inches lost, that's objective data to prove that I am simultaneously building muscle mass while losing fat at the same time. So that's why I had you guys add at least the waist measurements, because it's nice. So let's say I was looking at my waist measurements and I'm like, okay, no inches lost and no pounds lost for 2 weeks. Then I'm thinking, okay, I'm in a plateau and I need to do a reset. And as you guys know, if you're in a warrior, you could just text us and we'll get on a call and set you up on the proper starting point. But if you're doing this on your own as a student, then what we need to do is you need to figure out how many calories you think you've been averaging for the last week or two, right? And sometimes you're in this protocol and you just kind of, that's the downside to the tirzepatide. And that's why I don't want you guys on higher doses, because that can happen. You're fasting for 48 hours and you don't even realize that you're barely eating 1,200 on the other 5 days. That will create a plateau. So sometimes it happens because weight loss is just humming and life gets busy, and okay, fine. If it happens, we fix it. That's why I had you do that calorie counting experiment in the beginning, because usually when I talk to people, I go, remember how much you were eating at the beginning of the program? Did you start eating less? And usually what happens is, oh yeah, I didn't realize because I'm not hungry. So we just got to go back to base. We go back to eating somewhere in that 1,800, 1,700, 1,800 to 2,000, maybe 2,500 if you're a larger male, more active. And we got to do that every day and do the reset. We have a ton of videos to help you guys out with that. Ceci can send you, even as a student, that you still get the perks of asking as much questions as you want as a student. And Ceci will send you as many videos as she possibly can. Just warrior, we can actually work with you and directly help you. So that's the difference. Sandra, does that help? And Ceci will let me know if you're on our student or warrior program. So
I'm just,
if you are,
last name, she hasn't sent me a message back.
Oh, okay, for sure. If you are a warrior, just text us a FLOA hotline and we'll get you fixed up. All right, Blair, what's a good rate of inches lost? Is that even a thing? I haven't seen. Yeah, it's a good question, Blair. I think it's tricky because the reason why I don't like pounds lost and I give you guys percentages is because a heavier person, you interpret the numbers differently. I think with inches lost, you could maybe try to say a percentage of your inches, but I think as long as and it's so small though, I think the margin of error is tough. So as long as you're doing the best that you can to measure the circumference, if you're doing waist, and you look at maybe 2 weeks in a row and you can see for certain that at least 2 weeks apart, there's a decrease, I'm happy with any rate of decrease. So, all right, Scarlett.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what CJC is real quick. Everybody was saying they loved it and they had a lot more weight loss on that than the IPA, which I think is ipramelin. But what is CJC?
So CJC 1295 and ipamorelin they're different peptides, but they're always together, just so you know. So it's the same thing as far as the product, we prescribe a combo product of CJC 1295 and ipamorelin. CJC 1295 is a growth hormone releasing hormone, and ipamorelin is a growth hormone releasing peptide. Basically, you don't even have to worry about that. Together, they're a potent growth hormone secretagogue, meaning they stimulate the pulsatile release of your own internal endogenous growth hormone. I still think AOD is better, just so you know, for fat loss. But when you start getting closer to your goal and you're more interested in the recomp, building a little muscle mass, losing more fat at the same time, that's where it's a common thing for us to switch over. If you still want to keep investing and you have the ability to do that, financially speaking, of course, switching over to either completely switch over to a growth hormone secretagogue, or some people do both at the same time.
Yeah, and I was wondering, like you had said, we need to take a little time off from AOD once we hit the third or fourth month. What do you suggest in that month that we can take when we're switching, like giving our receptors a break?
You could do a growth hormone peptide, right?
Okay.
And there's not, let me put that in silence. There's, as far as categories of peptides, you have your appetite suppressants, which that's the GLP-1s and tesofensine, right? But as far as this other category, you can alternate between the AOD, the growth hormone peptides, and tesamorelin, which is the most potent, is a little bit of a different pathway than the samorelin, but they're both growth hormone. And then you have MOTS-C, which is in its own category. It upregulates the mitochondrial function. And so if you're looking to really maximize, you could switch to one of those.
Yeah, and I just had one last thing. So I'm on a reset, and I'm going to tell everyone, I cannot believe how much better I feel now that I'm upping my calories. Like, y'all, I was at like 1,300 calories or 1,200 calories, and I was like swimming and out 2 hours, 3 hours a week, and then like weightlifting, wall Pilates, and what a difference.
Like I
It
said,
was scary though, I'm not going to lie, but
no,
what a
for sure.
difference.
And I appreciate you sharing that, because it's like Shireen was saying earlier, it's scary, right? Oh my God. And guess what? I'm not perfect. You might gain a little bit of weight during the reset. Don't get mad at me. It works most of the time. But it's crazy how powerful the body is at surviving these situations, right? It's called a survival mechanism, right? For a reason. Our ancestors would go through periods where they didn't have food for very long periods of time. The only way the body could survive long periods of not eating is by figuring out an effective way to essentially decrease energy requirements. What do you think that looks like? You're not going to think as clear. You're not going to think as fast. Brain fog. You're cold because it takes energy to keep your body hot, right? Your healing slows down. Everything slows down. You'll stay alive. What's interesting is you might actually live 10% longer, which is also really interesting if you look at longevity studies. People who just basically force themselves to undereat for the rest of their lives will actually live longer. But I don't recommend that, even if you want to live longer, because that's how you'll feel. You'll even lose some hair eventually, because your body goes, I don't need the hair because you're starving, right? So just quality of life, right? Quality of life. And I think I'm going to increase years on your life with all the other stuff that we're doing. But thank you for sharing that, Scarlett.
I gained, to let everyone know, I gained 4 pounds in the first week, but I was weighing myself during my fast for motivation. So I know some of that was probably a little normal, but I gained over 4 pounds. But I just said to myself, you know what? We're thinking long term here, not short term. And I hadn't been losing any weight, and I was exercising deficit, must have been insane. You know what I mean? So that's what I told myself, for anyone who's struggling with that, because trust me, it was hard, but I just said, you know what, I'm not going to worry about it. And then I feel so much better, like I said. So thank you.
No, yeah. And thank you for sharing that. And I feel confident that once we get through that, you'll start losing the weight. And now you won't let yourself undereat, right? On those non-long fasting days, because you had to go through this. So super cool. Looks like Jen had a question.
Okay, sorry, I'm driving, so I'm off camera. So I actually had a couple questions. The first one is, what is the normal difference, I guess, so I just did my second fast and I made it 40 hours this time. So I upped it. I felt great. And I know you're probably going to tell me don't weigh yourself. That might be what you say. But I was obviously at my lowest. What is the fluctuation that you want to see throughout the week? Or what's the normal amount that you should be seeing of like that difference of your lowest? Is there like a percentage increase of when you do go back to, again, I'm on like 1,800 or 1,900 calories, I think.
So like, make sure I understand.
I'm not overeating, or can I take that into account at least of, oh, my body will continue to do this, and that's like my new goal to hit? during
I
my
wanna
fast.
make-
So again, after,
Yeah. I
that
want
was like
to
my lowest, and now how much do I want to gain?
Okay, so let me make sure I understand your question. I might not, but I'm going to repeat it. Actually, let me just say some stuff and tell me if it answers your question. So we'll start there. So if you were to weigh yourself every day, and I don't want you guys to do this, but if you were, what you would see is a pretty big loss with a long fast. Whatever that loss is, could be anywhere from 2 pounds to freaking 8 pounds, depending on many factors. And then what you will normally see if you're weighing yourself daily is you're going to regain like 60 to 70% of that weight. And then,
Okay, so
but you
yes,
still
that
have
was my question. Yep.
I thought that answered your question, right? I just wasn't sure. And then, yeah, and then it's a weekly cycle. If you were weighing yourself every day, you had you were plugging it into the app and it was showing you a graph. It'd be pretty cool if you wanted to nerd out on the graphs and do all that kind of stuff. Ain't nobody got time for that. So cool.
I
All
actually
right.
do. I do because I wear my Ultra Human ring, and it gives me
Oh.
like graphs on everything every day.
Yeah. If you like to do that stuff, guys, totally. If you have a way to show us like your weight plotted daily, you send it to me, and I might even show it to the group if you want to. So I think that'd be super cool for everybody. And on that topic, since we're talking about it, I had a couple meetings with programs that have apps, and we were so close to launching the new group, and I was going to launch it on school. And then it's before you make that launch, I'm like, man, there's no going back. If I have everybody switch from Facebook to a new community, I can't like 4 months later be like, oh no, this option is better. So we're taking a step back and just really making sure this is the perfect community. Because what I'm looking for is a solution where I have the FLOA app and everything's there, your community, your submissions. There's a lot that I'm trying to put into this. And anyways, I just thought I would let you know. And so showing me that would be pretty cool, because give me something to consider as far as a feature for you guys.
Okay, awesome. And then my only other question I had is, what are your thoughts on changes in body composition compared to actual weight loss? Because I feel like I look very different, but I don't see it in the numbers as much.
Totally. So if you are very overweight, okay, I know it's a relative term, but if you're very overweight, we all know when we're very overweight, we need to see weight loss because we have so much fat in our body that we need to see weight loss. But if at any point during that, even at the beginning, although that's pretty rare to happen right at the beginning, although it can, usually it happens somewhere on the journey where the scale stops moving. But especially if you're doing my protocol, which you guys know has a heavy emphasis on muscle building, like a heavy emphasis. I think I used the word train like a bodybuilder to a lot of you guys. So there's going to be points in my program where the scale's not going to move, but the inches are going to go down. Another reason why, like, honestly, I was like, why didn't I ask for the circumference measurements earlier? So that was my bad on that. But the circumference measurements really help us for that reason, so that we can stay objective and we can dampen those emotions and be like, hey, don't freak out. It's okay. Inches are going down. This is amazing for long-term success. Now, obviously, if you're 300 pounds and you should weigh 150, we can't just have inches lost forever. That's not, I get that. I'm with you. But I promise you that if you're losing inches, that means you're building muscle and you're losing fat. Well, you're not going to keep building muscle forever. Trust me. Like, most bodybuilders would kill for that ability. This happens when you start doing intense hypertrophy training. It's called newbie results. Advanced lifters know this. It's like you just do whatever and you start building muscle mass. That's not going to last long unless you're taking crazy anabolic agents above testosterone therapy. Also, it can happen if you start testosterone therapy too. So starting lifting for a first time or starting testosterone therapy are going to really stimulate the muscle building potential, which is going to affect the trend on the scale, which is why I go back to inches loss as a nice objective metric that we can utilize and, again, keep our emotions under control, because that's important.
Yeah, I wish I did do the inches because I feel like it would be drastic, but
start now because you're not at your goal yet. And if you really want to be, since you told me you're very like meticulous, 3-point measurements is good. Waist, belly, right to the belly button would be the base. And then you can do arm and you can do thigh. And you just use a certain anatomical reference, like on the elbow and the wrist, for example, and you just remember that and you go halfway in the middle, and that's how you can stay consistent with the measurements. I'll eventually make some videos for the 3-point system, but I didn't want to make a huge jump for you guys. And so I was happy with just waist measurement, but those would all be good.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys enjoyed watching this video, then you're going to want to check this one out. I get into a deep dive over GLP-1 medications, peptides, and lasting weight loss, guys. We'll see you later.